hard to believe it was just last year that Marjorie Carmichael won the Maine Potato Blossom Queen title and had gotten to go to the Bangor Hotel. Of course, Molly had hoped to enter this year, but her family put a quick stop to that. Mr. Carmichael was actually pushing the festival committee to put an end to the Potato Blossom Queen pageant altogether. He credited it with driving the Indians wild with lust and accused the pageant of being nothing more than a public peep show of sorts.
So the Indian Rights Council, Mr. Pop's words jarred me back to the present, to this truck, to the fields, to where we were headed, to Mick. The mayor asked me to serve on it. You're on it? I felt it important to say yes, especially now. We'll meet in Fort Fairfield the weekend the Potato Blossom Festival begins. But that's next week. I was surprised that they were moving ahead so quickly. Why now? Why not wait until after harvest? I think the rumblings and speculation and anger seething under the surface has barely been held at bay.
I know you're worried about how people see you. I know you're wondering what everyone thinks about you and Mick. I answered too quickly. Mick and I are friends. Why would I worry what everyone thinks? Mr. Pop tried to hide a wry grin. Your mother and you think I don't know anything. You think I've got my head buried deeper than the potatoes. You girls think I can't see. I picked at my thumbnail and stared straight ahead at Second Baptist steeple coming up behind town. I was too nervous to say anything. I knew Mr. Pop could see, I just didn't know what he had seen.
Mick's a nice boy, Mercy. He's smart and a hard worker. In many ways, I've loved him like a son. So all I'm saying is, man sakes, what's going on up there? My eyes shifted from the church's steeple to the sidewalk just ahead where a crowd had gathered in front of Fulton's. Mr. Carmichael was yelling and pointing.
Mr. Pop pulled the truck over and we both jumped out, though Mr. Pop raced far ahead of my more dazed steps. Somehow, as I drifted toward the crowd, I knew. Though I couldn't hear his words, I recognized the fury of Mr. Carmichael's voice. Then a path cleared in the people and I could see Mick standing in the direct line of Mr. Carmichael's finger above Old Man Stringer. Mr. Carmichael's words rang clear to my ears now, as well as he yelled to my father just what he had seen. He killed him, Paul. I saw him through the window. That boy struck Old Man. Cold blood. He's dead.
Mr. Carmichael swung round to the crowd, his eyes flashing, his hands waving. It's like I've been telling you people, Maliseet aren't simply pagan, they are monsters. Mr. Carmichael lunged toward Mick. The crowd gasped as Mr. Pop grabbed Mr. Carmichael, restraining him.
And then something overtook me. I pressed through the crowd, stepped over Old Man and Dr. Benson, who someone had run to get, and grabbed Mick, wrapping my arms around him as though we were back in our fort, as though we were alone, as though not all eyes were on us.
I never heard the sirens or the commands for Mick to let go of me and go with them. I didn't hear Mr. Pop urging me to let go. I never heard his words of assurances that all would be fine, that he'd sort this out. All I heard was Mick whispering, "Someday," before being pulled away, and then Mr. Pop thrusting the keys into my hand and grabbing my shoulders. "Go right back home. Tell your mother to call Uncle Roger, now."
I nodded and stepped back toward the truck. People spilled out from the brick facades along Main Street, bunching together, at first staring and then turning toward each other to start the churning of the rumor mill. Then a few folks splintered off, running toward Dr. Benson's office, following his pointed finger and clipped demands. While I walked backward, the scene ahead of me blurred. The bricks of the buildings and clear glass of the doors and height of the steeple at Second Baptist and the cross of St. Mary's of the Visitation faded and whirled together in the terror of my mind.
I had lost sight of Mick, of the police who led him away, and of Mr. Pop. But as I stepped up onto the running board of the truck, I saw 3 figures walking up the steps of the jail, each with their hands on the boy in the center. 2 police officers grasped Mick's elbows, leading him ever forward, toward who knew what future. Mr. Pop rested one hand on Mick's back and raised his other hand toward heaven, toward the one who knew that future.